Thank you very much, Mary, for your presentation, and also Is for inviting me to deliver this webinar. And also thank you very much for all of you that have registered and joined to this seminar. And please, as Mary said, you are really welcome to write your questions in the chat. I have it open here. It's true that when I go into the content, I sometimes forget to check the chat, but in any case, we'll have the time at the end of the session, a question and answer session. So I will be very happy that we can have a discussion and conversation at that time. You have here my contact details. I am the founder of Ineditum and Scientific Storyline, two startups based in Spain, where I help scientific authors with a team of English native speakers, academics, helping authors to convey their message, their research in a more clear and precise manner. And today we have structured the session with these three main parts: clarity and precision of content, applied to both posters and poster session or poster presentations, design, and some tips at the end on video presentation, specifically for this EASE conference that is going to take place this summer in Valencia. A video presentation is encouraged, optional, a 5-minute presentation, so that could be also a useful tips from my experience on video preparation. I'm going to start with a short story because when I was preparing this webinar, I was thinking on my path along conferences, poster sessions. And it all started in 2013 when I began my journey as a scientific author. And I have to say that at that time, I wasn't appreciating or joining that much poster sessions, because in my circle of academics, my colleagues, the department where I was doing my research, we were more aligned into conference presentations, talks, speeches, and I wasn't paying too much attention to poster sessions. But all that changed. I would say the milestone is 2016. I was doing a research stay in Delft, the Netherlands, and the research group that invited me to be with them for some months doing research, I was very surprised on how much attention they gave to posters. For instance, in the building where we had the offices, the lab, the corridors had, and I'm pretty sure that they still have, I didn't have the chance to go recently to check, but in the corridors, in the walls, they have a lot of posters from the different presentations, different conferences that the members have attended over the last years. And when I was doing the research with them, an event was approaching where was based, in fact, on posters. Without the number of conference talks was very limited, not without them, but very limited. They encouraged me to prepare a poster. I felt very nervous because that was the first time for me. And I really enjoyed the moment where you see in the screen presenting the poster, but much trying to have conversation with the attendees. And that, I think that's the magic of posters, having the possibility of engaging in unexpected conversation when all of us can learn. Of course, speeches, conference talks, also at the end of the conference talk, we always have, or usually have, questions and answers. But for posters, in my view, they are truly, or there should be truly designed to have these chats with colleagues, complete strangers that can give us a lot of interesting ideas. And I love this quote. I wanted to put it here. Also, this is a very nice resource, a book in my view, that goes into a lot of detail on posters. And the author says that too often posters are treated as the poor cousin to papers and talks. But for me, poster sessions are the true beating heart of academic conferences, and I love them, by Zen Faulkes. And that wording, the true beating heart, is what I really agree with, that way of referring to them. And I hope that you too enjoy or start to enjoy posters as much as some academics do. I'm going to start with some initial considerations for both posters and posters presentation. Of course, we will have to consider different things if we are going to print the poster or we are going to deliver it in a digital format. I would say that, especially if we are printing it, we need more time in advance to prepare, to avoid procrastination, because we need to print it, to be sure that everything is consistent in the printed format if we compare it with the digital format. With digital, of course, we will see, because a lot of examples we have today here in the presentation is digital. It's not good that we have time to delay the preparation of the poster, but of course we also need time, as we've printed, to check that consistency and clarity is there. And the format of the poster presentation, is it face-to-face, it is virtual, with interaction or without interaction? Is there any time limit, especially in the presentation of the poster, if we are going to have like more free talks with different colleagues or not? Other factors, of course. And for poster presentations, sometimes, as it is the case of this year's conference, we have the chance to record a presentation, but sometimes the presentations are streaming, are live, face-to-face. Of course, also a time limit that may apply, as well as that other factors. And when I were talking about these different formats of poster presentation, I think that before the pandemic, the face-to-face session was the usual practice with some other formats, but I would say in my experience that most of the poster sessions I attended had this view as we see in the screen. But now there are many options and platforms like the one that appear in the screen, where it's kind of digital but very interactive, where groups can join together or go to different posters as an individual, and even though their digital formats are very interactive. And I would say that the less interactive way, even though I think it has also a good level of interactivity because people can contact you, but it's not the same as in a conference, are this kind of websites as the one I'm showing you on F1000 Research, that is like a database where after the conference and sometimes before, you can deposit your poster and colleagues around the world can access it and possibly contact you. And before going into the three sections we are going to see today, clarity and precision, design, and video presentation, I wanted to emphasize this part of empathy for the audience, for our viewers, our readers, because it's something that really helps me every time I prepare a research article, every time I prepare a poster. And it's thinking on that. Maybe it's better to think on one person, that you imagine what readings, analyzing your poster, and thinking also on you as a potential viewer of other posters. What would you like to see in that poster, or even questions that you imagine that your audience might ask, so you can anticipate and respond to them in the poster. And with that in mind, our audience, we are going to start with this first section on clarity and precision of content. And there is a question I like, and I usually recommend to authors, questioning ourselves: does the poster transmit the message in a clear and precise manner? As with research articles, we are going to have different versions of our poster, and we are going to be polishing the message until either we print it or we send it for consideration, for publication. And I think it's good, even though this question is a bit general, so we are going to go into more details in the next slides. And this is the first question. I treat all these questions in the form of a checklist to go through different rewriting, revisions of the poster. So the first one is, does the poster clearly delivers its research question? I've written there all the different alternatives that, depending on the fields, depending on the authors, we use one or more of these. Some of us, these research questions are more in the form of an hypothesis or an aim or an intention, but one of two or one or different ones of these elements, we are going to call them from now on research question. And is this element present in the poster so that the reader, when it approaches our poster, can understand what's the basis of our story that we are conveying in our poster? And to guide readers, this element should be present in a bigger size, because we are also going to deliver complementary information to this, of course, but we have the basis of our research with this hypothesis, research question, delivering until the conclusion. And if we have this element in a bigger size, we will see an example at the end of the presentation. I have some examples of this. We can better guide readers. Other things that sometimes happen to us as authors is that we try to convey too many questions or too many research questions or too many stories in our posters. And there are many authors that agree that if we stick to only one research question, the message can be even more clear. And this is very related to the second question. Does the poster stick to one unique story? This research story is articulated through the research question, and the conclusion responds to that research question, as it happens with a research article. But maybe in the poster, when we go now to the section on design, we have to be more cautious on the choices we made to make this story and the basis of the story very clear for the viewer. Also having in mind that posters intend to engage or to promote conversations with the viewers we are having. Does the poster present the elements of the story in a logical order? It depends on the culture, of course, but for instance, here in Europe, we are used to read from left to right and from top to bottom. So sometimes the element, if they are a bit more messy, the audience can be lost. So it's good that we put ourselves in front of our poster and really think about this logical order. In the presentation, if we are doing an oral presentation or a video recording, the order is not so evident with this is logical order as in the poster, but instead of taking into consideration how we read, it's more about providing context with the problem, framing our research with a research question, and flowing into the conclusion of our research or the extract of the research we are presenting. And the fourth question, does the poster provide its main references? It's a very good practice to put the essential bibliographic references that we are considering in our poster. It's not needed to have, of course, the whole list of references as we have in a research paper, but at least the principal ones, because on the one side, we are giving credit to our colleagues, and also our readers can have more context and also going into that references to do more research if they wish. And we are now going to start with the second section on design. And design also covering not only the poster, but that video presentation and how we are going to support that video presentation, sometimes with the slides. And most of the things I mentioned for the design of posters apply, and I have there some examples to these slides we might use. And the question, is the poster designed to promote conversation? With design, of course, this is a very broad topic, and there are different layers and different levels of competency as with everything. But in my view, at least we should master a basic level of design in which we don't distract our audience from our message. So trying to put the elements in a way that is nice, even though it doesn't have to be professional, because of course we are not professional designers. And we have here two examples of posters. They are of very different styles. And as you see, the one with the background in green with the image, very, very visual. And the other one, I would say that with a lot of text. And if we go into them, to me, less is more. I'm not saying that this is the perfect example, because all posters, and also depending on the audience, we can have critiques on different aspects. But if we really want to engage with our audience, the question or the aspect, the theme we are addressing has to be very evident. And in this case, the authors are doing that in a very clear manner. And also they are putting additional information in a QR code. We will mention this thing with the QR code in a later stage. But this is a practice that some authors use to provide more details, as we do with papers, with this part of supplementary information that sometimes is allowed. And in that way, we can, or the audience can go for further details, and the authors can engage with conversation with the main theme they wish. What happens with this is that sometimes we try, or we think in posters as papers. And this amount of text can be very overwhelming for our audience. In a paper, yes, we are expecting that amount of details, but probably, in my view, this type of poster doesn't promote that much conversation, and is something we should keep in mind. And these are two examples of slides. Slides can support our video presentation, but similarly to posters, we have to be very aware of the amount of text and the level of visuals we put in our slides. As academics, we love the written word, we love text, and that is very good in my view. But in slides, we usually speak, we provide more information, and we can engage more our audience with more visuals. Of course, also, instead of a slide, if we are presenting a poster, we could have the whole poster in the screen. I've seen some of that presentations with the whole posters, and if we are not doing boxes or guiding our audience with the different parts we are addressing, that can be a bit confusing. But there can be ways where we show the whole poster, and with Zoom or with boxes we present, and that's a very visual way, of course, of also doing that. The first question for this part of design, my recommendation is to ask ourselves as checklists, do the colors of the poster facilitate the experience of the reader? It's a best practice to use non-distracting colors, to be consistent with the colors we use, the fewer, the better. And another white background, usually white functions very well. Sometimes an image can also work pretty well, as long as it doesn't distract from the text we are showing in the poster. And you see that the example with the gray, the blue, the yellow, they are using just a limited number of colors that they work pretty well. Why? Well, because these are designed by these combinations by people that are really into visual design. And the good thing is that we can find this combination of colors very easily in internet and stick to them. And of course, the other example is an extreme example. I think we are not doing that thing, but sometimes just a different, a strange combination can distract a bit our audience. The second question, do the text and fonts of the poster facilitate the experience of the reader? As with colors, it's good to be consistent, to choose a font, a typography that is legible, stick to it, and also don't mix a lot of different sizes. It's better to have 2, 3, but not change too much, because for some readers that can be very distracting. Here is an example of 2 typographies that function well, but of course there is a long list. This is just, I wanted to put these 2 in the screen just to put into to bring into the table that there are 2 main categories of fonts. Ones that are serif, the ones where you see all these small details, and ones that are sans serif, and that some consider that are more clean, with less details. You see that this type of fonts doesn't have that small details that for some readers can be a bit distracting. Some designers combine these 2, and for big title, for instance, use serif fonts, and for the rest of the text, they use sans serif. You can pay attention, or maybe some of you are very aware of this, but it's interesting to see combinations of this, especially in the mediums where they are very into this type of design, such as scientific journals, where we can see which type of fonts they are using. As we as authors, we are not in charge of design of all of that editorial decisions. At least for our posters, we should have the information about these differences between serif and sans serif. The next question regarding design, does the poster have enough space without text? Because sometimes as authors, we feel we have to have every space with text, with figures, with tables, and that's not the case, because when we have a space without text, there is more air in the poster, and I think that the audience feels less overwhelmed. So it's a good question to ask, to not have that much amount of text. The fourth question, are the text boxes or figures aligned in a grid format? Also, this gives an impression of more attention to detail, and also the message, or how we are putting our information, doesn't distract readers from the main message, because some people really pay attention or find very disturbing if things are moved around the poster without following a grid. And besides that, for questions, I wanted to cover just small details, some of them reminders, extra considerations for us to have more food for thought about all of this. There are a lot of different poster templates. Sometimes the template is prepared by the conference administrators, the people that create and manages all the conference things. Sometimes there are templates from colleagues, such as the one I'm showing here in the screen, a template by Mike Morrison. I think templates, as with everything, saves us a lot of time, but I also wanted to emphasize that when we use a template, we have to be also very cautious about how we apply the template to our case. And sometimes the template doesn't perfectly fit into the message we want to convey. Also, the software that we have available. Of course, there are more software than the ones I'm highlighting here. I've put these 3 examples just because they are the ones that I use from time to time. And I've ordered them kind of from more professional, as Adobe InDesign, because usually Adobe is the package that the designers use, but also depending on the institution, you might not have a subscription to it. Canva, which has a bunch of free things to do with visuals and with templates, and it can be also an interesting software. And also, of course, PowerPoint, which is an option that we usually also use for slides, and it's also very handy for preparing posters. A reminder is putting our contact details in the poster. Is not easy to forget, well, because as with a paper, we usually put our names, but apart, besides our names and our affiliations, it might be good if you want to add some extra information so that colleagues can contact you and interact. Social media, a web page, anything you could use as your main contact details. And for creating QR codes, I mentioned this thing with QR codes, and we have seen some examples in the slides. For instance, for providing extra or supplemental information in our poster. Also, some authors use this QR code for the contact details in the poster, and there are many online tools. Some of them one have to register, some of them no. For instance, for creating this QR code, I used this one. Is at least for now, is not needed a registration, and you can also set some of the parameters to make your QR code as you'd like. And let's cover the last big section of the presentation on video presentation and some tips based on my experience. The first point I wanted to emphasize here is the use of scripts, because they help me a lot. Before, a few years ago, I used to memorize everything in a speech, and that, in my view, might make our presentations more robotic. We might be more nervous because if we forget something, we are kind of lost sometimes. But with the scripts, putting just the main things and with different levels, that's a very good tool in my view, and I'm currently using them just to have the outline in front of me for rehearsing before the presentation with the script. So I recommend that you try it if you haven't done it that so far. And if you are using slides to support your video presentation, I would say that as with posters, we have to play with visuals. We could be using our poster, as I was mentioning before, but if not, we can take a look. There are different templates. I wanted to mention one, Pecha Kucha format, which is about making our slides more visual. It's 20 slides, 20 seconds per slides, and most of them with visuals. We don't have to go to that extreme, but I don't recommend that we go to the other extreme of having most of our presentation with text. And for filming, I would emphasize these three aspects: sound, light, and background. And I've put here some examples with my experience recording videos. And of course, still a long journey to cover, but learning on how to improve presentation. As with visuals and as with design, there are many different levels of mastery. But if we become fluent into the basics, at least our message can reach more readers, viewers. And the first layer in a video, I would say, is sound, that at least the sound is nice, not distracting our viewers. With that, I would say that depending on the computer, we could have a pretty good microphone inside our computer. For instance, today I'm just using the built-in microphone in my computer. But in these two photos, I am using a quite basic microphone that it enhances a lot the audio. But the thing is that it's not always, at least for me, easy to set up in the computer. For instance, today I had so many problems on setting the microphone. Of course, this should be my fault, and I should continue practicing with this. I usually use this with my telephone, as with the screenshots I have in the computer, to upload videos on YouTube. With my mobile phone, it works very well. But today, when I was connecting the microphone into the computer, I couldn't hear the rest of the people in the room. So sometimes even, technology is good if we use them for our advantage. And as I was saying, this is the best thing is that you test how it sounds. If it's okay, if it's not distracting, you can go with it, and I'm sure you'll do pretty well. The second thing is light. I've been learning a lot about light in this last year because of my journey recording videos and everything. The first screenshot you see in the top level of the screen, the yellowish screenshot, that was my first recording. I wasn't paying attention to video, and then a friend told me, "Oh, the light is terrible." That day I wasn't using natural light, that was in the evening or at night, and depending on the light we are using at home, is not good and usually sometimes very, very yellow. So if we take advantage of natural light, today, for instance, I'm recording with natural light. In the other screenshot, in the bottom of the screen, that was also natural light. I think that can work pretty well without going to a professional setup, but just not disturbing, I would say. And the background, if we have a background that doesn't distract, for instance, the one in the image I'm showing in the top part of the screen, to me is distracting because there are so many columns, and also, yeah, especially for the columns, and probably the colors is not, but that can be subjective. A background as the one I'm using today, which is the second one you see in the screen, can be more neutral, and I think that in that case it functions better for not distracting. And let's finish with some examples. As you are going to have the recording, you can study these examples more with more time and with more attention. But I'm going to just mention what I've found in these posters, considering the checklist, the questions we had in the design and in the clear and precise message of the poster. This type of posters we are seeing in the screen maybe is a bit extreme. I extracted it from the Better Posters book from Faulkes, and I'm sure he was selecting this because it has a lot of things to correct, and we are then going, well, to correct or to improve, because of course there is no good and bad, but just more useful or less useful for our audience. We are going to see these examples with this poster, and next go to a poster that, in my view, it better comply with the checklist I was mentioning. So in this poster, in my view, there is no clear research question, no clear story, maybe because there are too many stories that the authors are trying to convey. No evident reading flow, because even though we have numbers in the poster, but they probably don't follow the logical reading order we would expect as readers. No references, at least I couldn't find them. As a positive point, the white background does not distract, it's neutral, but there are too many colors in titles of the sections, also even with the table putting colors with no apparent reasons, because at the end, all the design considerations, if there is a reason, no, okay, I put this color because of that, and I use that color consistently. Okay, that's fine, but too many colors without an apparent reason distracts us from the main message. The titles of the sections are not consistent in color, in font, even sometimes not being straight. Very limited space without text, so too much text. And the different alignment of boxes can distract. They apparently are not following a grid, as we were seeing that is a good practice. And we are also going to see this example, which, as you see, is more visual. In my view, the research question is clearly shown also at a bigger size in the screen. It conveys a unique story, in my view, that starts with that research question and also gives detail and results, a conclusion. Apparently there is a logical reading order in my view, or at least it's more easy to follow for the more limited number of elements that appear in the poster. As a possibly negative or in part for improvement is that I couldn't find the references, and at least the main ones, the essential ones, as if you remember from the presentation, would be a good practice to have. The poster use colors in a consistent manner, which is yeah, very nice. the poster or the authors are using legible, consistent text and fonts with different sizes, but not so many different sizes. We should check the poster, if it's printed of digital, to see if the text that is smaller is still legible. But apart from that, the use is consistent. There is enough space without text. They are taking advantage to have a background with even an image, but it's not overwhelming in my view because of the amount of text. The boxes are very aligned to a grid following a pattern. And with this, I finished everything I wanted to tell you. I've been checking the chat, but I haven't seen questions so far. But we have this section of the session for any questions you might have, which you can write in the chat, but maybe Mary, you can correct me, but I think that you can also ask the questions putting your microphone on.
Sure.
So thank you very much for your attention.
So there's not a huge number of people on actually here. So if you'd like to put on your cameras and your microphones now, so that we can see everybody, and then we can perhaps have some discussion between us. Would it be possible to do that? And perhaps I could ask, how many of you have already produced posters in one form or another? Let's have a little show of hands, see who has already done it, because I think there's a lot, as we've seen, there's a lot to think about, isn't there? And I'm looking at the background of my office now and thinking how distracting the background is. So yeah, I do generally, when I'm doing big conferences, move to a different place, so I have a sort of blank wall behind me, but for my everyday I just carry on as I am. So I'm conscious of all these things as you're talking, but I think it would be helpful, perhaps, Anna, just to, for me anyway, just to clarify for the content, the sections. Is there any absolute defined sections that you have to have? Like, you have your research question, and then do you have to have like methodology and your results and your conclusion? Is there headings there, or is that a little bit different depending on what your question was?
Thank you, Mary, for the question. I would say that most of the times following the typical sections we have in a paper is good, but without going into that amount of detail. That is an approach, but I wouldn't say a poster has to have a fixed number of sections. For instance, we saw some of the posters, even the good practice, well, the good practice one that I found more visual and with different elements following the checklist I was mentioning, they didn't have some of the elements. They probably were focusing most into the research question, the results, and the conclusion. So this brings me into another answer, is that at least if we put the research question, the results, the ones that are really supporting the story we want to tell in the poster. We don't have to put all the results, all different figures, tables, but in fact, we should be trying to select which are the ones that we want to show to promote conversations. Also, as with papers or with everything probably in life, we have to have our goal, which is the goal of our poster, because promoting conversation to me is like a general goal. But maybe for some of us, we have some aspect of our research in which we would like to receive more feedback. And in that case, having from the research question to the results section and the conclusion, but focusing on that part in which we want to generate more conversation, more ideas that can feed our future research, that could be good. But well, there are so many different templates, advice, sections that I wouldn't have a categorical answer for that.
Okay, would anyone like to ask a question to Anna, or ask or make a comment or anything? Would anybody like to? Now, Anna has asked, she's a little confused about topic. In the invitation, it says any topic. So this is presumably in the invitation to submit a poster to the EASE conference. So in some conferences we have had a particular theme. So like, for instance, last year we ran on the theme of environment. So the topic was, we actually had several categories. So there was topics for medical papers or biomedical papers, topics for papers that were discussing the theme of environment. But this year there is no sort of restriction. So it doesn't matter what your research is about or what topic it's involved with. You can submit any topic that you want. Topic on launching new Diamond OA journals. Yep, that would be fine. Yep. So that's really that's sort of a very wide remit for everyone, which will make it interesting in the judging. But you know, it doesn't matter what the topic is. The idea is to provide a platform for people to be able to promote their research. And so the exhibition will run for the whole of June on the website. So everybody's posters will be published for the whole of June. And you know, we'll do a lot of promotion around that so that we get some exposure for everyone who's submitted a poster. And then during that period, there will be a judging panel who will you know, try to pick a winner from the submissions. But in a way, that's a bit of a carrot. You know, that's a nice thing to have. But the main thing is to have the exhibition. So to have as many posters as we can to encourage that conversation. And then it's not compulsory. So if you don't want to submit a video presentation, you don't have to. But last year we ran that for the first time with a video presentation, and I think the majority of people did do one. And that also ran alongside the poster in the exhibition, so that people could actually have you present, you know, in a recording, your poster and have some discussion around your theme. And that didn't have to be done in a very fancy way. You know, if you have sort of a simple smartphone that, you know, has a decent camera on it, you can do that, or you can just do it directly into Zoom. If you know, you can record yourself via Zoom. We have people doing it that way too. So it doesn't have to be a high-tech solution. But as Anna said, if you just take care of some sort of minor details of just as you're looking at yourself on the screen, what's your background, how do you look, is the light reflecting on your glasses, for instance, or you know, it's making your face look very washed out. So just have a little play with what you know, if you can see yourself on screen as you're doing it. Zoom's great for that, isn't it? If you put your screen on, you can see how you look, and then you can make some adjustments to your lighting or where you're sitting to help with that. Do we have any other questions from anybody? Okay. So a couple of things. If you would, so at the moment we're calling for abstracts. So if you would like to submit your abstract, all the details are on the website. So you submit it via email to me, and then they're then assessed for suitability, and then you'll get some feedback. So it may be that the people who assess it will say, oh yeah, that's looking interesting. Could you particularly focus on this thing? You know, like, we're interested to know more about this part of what your research is. So you will get some feedback there. But Anna has also offered to help if anyone wanted to submit their poster to Anna before they submit it to me, then she'd have a quick look over and kind of give you any tips on how it's looking and what, you know, simple moves could be done to improve it. So that's a really nice offer from Anna. Okay, so let me just share my screen a minute then, because I have, if I just turn all this off, I have just a couple of slides to share with you. just to give you some details. So the conference itself, let me just move the chat off here for a minute. The conference itself is between the 24th and the 26th of June. And it's going to be held hybrid. So we'll be in Valencia in Spain, but we will also be running the whole thing virtually. So you know, anyone can participate. The registration opens next Tuesday. So keep an eye out for an email coming your way to tell you that registration is open. The theme of the conference is the manuscript journey and editor's perspective, or the editor's perspective. And so what we're doing there is we're sort of following a manuscript from the point of view of, you know, before it's submitted, once it's submitted, as it goes through peer review, then as it goes through post-production, all the way through to publishing. So there is a sort of journey through the manuscript's life as it goes towards publication. And the program is quite detailed. It's not completely finalized, but most of the detail is there on the website already. So go to the website, click on the events section, go down to the conference, and then you'll be able to view the details about the poster submissions and the program. So there are opportunities there for you to be involved in many ways. So submitting a poster we've discussed already. We also will be asking people if they would be prepared to write up one of the sessions or a particular part of the conference. They might be prepared to write that up for the conference packet. And the conference packet actually is provided to all delegates at the end of the conference, so that you have all the recordings and all the slide decks and all the notes of everything, and that will include your posters. So that's the conference. And then I just wanted to draw your attention also to the resource library. So we've not long launched this in its new searchable format. So our resource library is now fully searchable and has a whole raft of curated resources with guidelines, checklists, articles and tools, and this webinar will become one of those. So please, you know, click into the resource library and get some support there if you need anything. And then finally, I just wanted to draw your attention to the next member webinar, which is next Tuesday. I think, let me just check that's right. Yep, next Tuesday with Gareth Dyke, who's doing a webinar on the theme of plain English in the context of science journals. So he'll really be looking at, you know, how to hone your writing skills to make the best of your writing. So that's just a few little tips there for you for what's coming up next in EASE. Okay, many thanks to everybody. I'll see you soon. Okay, bye-bye now.